KCBS, in partnership with UCSF Health, presents As Prescribed, a weekly conversation with leading medical experts from UCSF Medical Center and UCSF Benioff Children's Hospitals.
Hello and welcome to As Prescribed. I'm Alice Wertz. Recently, the mayor of San Pablo donated a liver to his father. It's a more commonly found practice lately. It's how some donors are able to help family and friends receive a new liver. And in the past 15 years, we've seen an increase in fatty liver disease, highlighting the need for more living donors. Today, we're speaking with Dr. John Roberts, an organ transplant surgeon with expertise in kidney and liver transplants at UCSF. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Roberts.
Well, thank you for having me, Alice. I'm excited about our conversation.
So tell us, what are some options for people that need an organ transplant?
Well, there's basically two places where organs come from for transplantation. And one is from deceased donors where, somebody has suffered an accident or a stroke and they've died and their family is kind enough to donate their organs to the people on the waiting list. Obviously it's a time of great stress for people, but some people sort of see through it and think about, the who needs it, who could be helped by their tragic loss. The other is that we get organs from living donors. Those are primarily people that donate a kidney or donate a liver, and those are an important source for organ donation in the United States.
And what does it mean to be a living donor?
Well, to talk about living liver donation, what happens is that we take out part of the donor's liver and then put it into the recipient. The liver is an amazing organ in that it can regenerate itself, and our livers are probably regenerating all the time as we go through life. And the regeneration happens really fast, probably starts within minutes to hours, and there's a rapid growth of the liver in the first week after we take out part of the liver in the donor, and then there's a slower phase where it probably finishes its growth over the next few months. The same thing happens in the recipient. That piece of liver that the donor gave suddenly starts to grow in size and grows to the size that the recipient needs to maintain them. And so that's what allows us to do living donor liver transplantation. Living donor kidney transplantation, you have two kidneys and you can give one, but you don't grow back that kidney. But in living donor liver transplantation, the piece of liver grows back.
And so what does it take for someone or why are we seeing more of a need for living donors?
Well, so there's a lot of people who have liver disease in the United States. And one of the things that's changed in the last 15, 20 years is we've had an epidemic of obesity. And with that comes fatty liver disease. And there's a high percentage of people in the United States who have fat in their liver. And some of those people, that fat starts to cause inflammation in the liver and then causes scarring of the liver. And eventually they end up with cirrhosis, which is, the scarring of the liver and at that point, those people frequently need liver transplants.
Tell us more about what it takes to be a living donor.
Well, so you have to be healthy. We want the donor to have the best opportunity to recover after their transplant. So they have to be healthy. They have to obviously be motivated, and they have to be able to understand, that they're having a big operation. This is an important aspect of their process is understanding that it's an operation that has risks, and that we do it as safely as we can, but we can't eliminate all the risks. And those people need to decide that, I'm willing to take this risk in order to, save the life of my loved one.
What else should we know about being either a candidate that needs a transplantation or someone that is willing to provide a living donor for a transplantation?
Well, so I think the important part to understand about people who need a liver transplant is that what we do is we rank people on a waiting list by how sick they are. And that's so that the sickest people can get a transplant. The problem with we just don't have enough deceased donors to transplant everybody that needs one. And so the issue comes is that you have to be sick in order to get a transplant. And getting sick with liver disease, it's not like every day you get a little bit sicker until you finally get sick enough to get a transplant. What happens is that you go along and then suddenly you get really sick. And some people get sick enough for a long enough period of time, we can find them a liver. Other people get too sick and die. And other people, we treat them, we make them better. And now they're not sick enough to get a transplant, but they still need one. And they have to wait for that next episode of getting really sick. And each time that happens, there's a risk of dying. And so that's what the advantage of living donor transplant is that you can get a transplant without having to get sick and get up to the top of the waiting list. The other issue is that, when we have people who are really sick who are, getting deceased donor transplants, those people are frequently in the hospital or even in the intensive care unit, and they have other problems. Their kidneys may not be working well. They've lost a lot of weight. They're weak. And it takes those people longer to recover after their transplant, longer to get better than the person that has a living donor and able to walk into the hospital to get their transplant. So that's the kind of the crux of the difference between, trying to get a deceased donor transplant and a living donor transplant. So those are, what we sort of look at in terms of the advantages. If I had two people, one got a living donor transplant and one got a deceased donor transplant today, and we looked at what happened to them at a year and 5 years, the outcomes are pretty good. They're, with both of them, but there's not a huge difference. Over 90% of the people will be alive at a year and 80% will be alive at 5 years. And there's not that much difference between living donor, deceased donor. The problem with deceased donors, you have to get sick and you have a high likelihood of dying, and a living donor helps you in that way.
This is wonderful information for everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Roberts.
Well, I really enjoyed being here, and I hope we can get people to think more about living donation.
We've been joined today by Dr. John Roberts, surgeon and specialist in organ transplantation, particularly for kidneys and livers at UCSF. Thanks for tuning in to As Prescribed. I'm Alice Wertz.
As Prescribed, every Thursday at 1:30, right here on the Bay Area's news station, All News 106.9 and AM 740 KCBS, and streaming on the Odyssey app. The proceeding was sponsored by UCSF.